Your engine starts making a knocking or pinging noise, loses power when you accelerate, runs rough, burns more fuel than normal, or suddenly turns on the check engine light. And now you are wondering, is the knock sensor bad, or is the spark timing actually off? This is where many people waste money. They hear engine knock and immediately replace the knock sensor. But here is the problem. A knock sensor does not create the knock. The knock sensor is supposed to detect knock. Sometimes the sensor is bad, but other times the sensor is only reporting a real engine problem. That means your issue could be a bad knock sensor, low octane fuel, overheating, carbon buildup, a lean fuel mixture, bad spark plugs, a weak ignition coil, a crankshaft sensor problem, a camshaft sensor problem, or even a stretch timing chain, which is why in this video I'll be helping you differentiate the symptoms of a bad knock sensor, the symptoms of bad spark timing, the trouble codes to look for, and how to check/validate each sign before replacing parts and still end up with the same problem. So first, what does the knock sensor do? The knock sensor is a small sensor mounted on the engine block, cylinder head, or intake area, depending on the vehicle. Its job is to listen for abnormal engine vibrations caused by spark knock, pinging, detonation, or pre-ignition. These are conditions where the air-fuel mixture does not burn smoothly inside the cylinder. When combustion happens correctly, the spark plug ignites the mixture at the right time, and the flame burns in a controlled way. But when knocking happens, pressure rises too fast inside the cylinder. That can create a sharp pinging sound and put stress on pistons, valves, bearings, cylinder walls, and the head gasket. When the knock sensor detects this vibration, it sends a signal to the engine computer. The computer can then reduce ignition timing, adjust fuel delivery, and protect the engine. If the sensor fails, the computer may not detect knock properly, or it may think knock is happening when it is not. Either way, the engine may lose power, run poorly, or trigger a check engine light. What is spark timing? Spark timing is the exact moment the spark plug fires inside the cylinder. The spark cannot happen randomly. It has to happen at the correct point in relation to piston position. If the spark fires too early, cylinder pressure builds before the piston is ready. That can cause pinging, knocking, overheating, and engine damage. If the spark fires too late, the engine may feel weak, sluggish, rough, and inefficient because combustion happens after the ideal moment. On older vehicles with distributors, ignition timing may be manually adjustable, but on most modern vehicles, spark timing is controlled by the engine computer using inputs from the crankshaft position sensor, camshaft position sensor, knock sensor, coolant temperature sensor, mass airflow sensor, manifold pressure sensor, throttle position sensor, oxygen sensors, and other data. So on a modern car, bad spark timing is usually not a single part called spark timing that you replace. It is usually the result of another issue, such as a sensor problem, misfire, wrong fuel, overheating, stretch timing chain, jump timing belt, wiring issue, or computer control problem. Signs of a bad knock sensor. One of the most common signs of a bad knock sensor is the check engine light. You will see codes like P0325, P0327, P0328, P0330, P0332, and P0333, which usually point to a knock sensor circuit problem, low input, high input, or sensor signal issue. But remember, a knock sensor code does not always mean the sensor itself is bad. It could also be damaged wiring, a loose connector, corrosion, oil contamination, rodent damage, or a knocking engine. Next sign is weak acceleration. If the computer does not trust the knock sensor signal, it may pull ignition timing to protect the engine. When timing is reduced, the engine may feel lazy, slow, or weak when you press the gas. This is different from a normal misfire. With a knock sensor problem, the engine may still run fairly smooth, but it feels like it has lost power. You may also notice poor fuel economy. When the computer retards timing or changes engine strategy to prevent knock, the engine may burn more fuel than usual. So if your fuel economy suddenly drops and you also have knock sensor codes, the sensor system should be checked. Another symptom is hesitation under acceleration. You press the gas, but the car feels delayed or unresponsive. This may happen because the computer is limiting timing advance to protect the engine. A bad knock sensor can also cause limp mode on some vehicles. The car may feel restricted, slow, or unable to accelerate normally because the computer is trying to prevent possible engine damage. In some cases, you may hear real engine knocking if the sensor fails completely and the computer can no longer correct timing properly. But this is where people get confused. If the engine is knocking, do not assume the knock sensor is the cause. The engine may be knocking because of low octane fuel, overheating, carbon buildup, a lean condition, too much timing advance, or mechanical timing problems. So the knock sensor may be the messenger, not the problem. Now let's look at signs of bad spark timing. One of the strongest signs is pinging or knocking during acceleration, especially when climbing hills, towing, driving under heavy load, or pressing the gas hard. This type of knock often sounds like a metallic pinging, rattling, or marbles shaking inside the engine. If the noise mostly happens under load and gets worse when the engine is hot, you should think about real combustion knock, not just a bad knock sensor. Next is poor engine performance. If spark timing is too advanced or too delayed, the engine will not make power at the right moment. The car may feel weak, sluggish, or rough during acceleration. Hard starting can also happen with timing problems. If ignition timing or mechanical timing is too far off, the engine may crank longer than normal, struggle to start, or start and run badly. Rough idle and shaking are also common. Incorrect timing can make combustion unstable. The engine may vibrate, stumble, or feel uneven while stopped. Backfiring is another warning sign. If the spark happens at the wrong time, you may hear popping from the intake or exhaust. This is more serious than a simple knock sensor symptom because it can point to incorrect timing, misfires, valve timing issues, or ignition problems. Bad spark timing can also cause misfire codes. Common misfire codes are P0300, P0301, P0302, P0303, P0304, P0305, P0306, P0307, and P0308. A random misfire code like P0300 means multiple cylinders may be affected. A code like P0301 means cylinder 1 is misfiring. P0302 means cylinder 2, and so on. Bad spark timing can also be connected to camshaft and crankshaft position codes. Common codes include P0335, which is for crankshaft position sensor issues, P0340 for camshaft position sensor issues, and P0016, P0017, P0018, or P0019 for camshaft and crankshaft correlation problems. Those correlation codes are very important because they can point to a stretched timing chain, jumped timing belt, faulty cam phaser, incorrect timing installation, or sensor alignment problem. If you see those codes with hard starting, rough running, rattling on startup, or poor power, do not ignore the timing chain or timing belt. How to tell the difference? Simple. A bad knock sensor usually causes a check engine light, knock sensor codes, reduced engine power, poor acceleration, and sometimes limp mode. The engine may still run fairly smoothly, but it feels weak because the computer is protecting it. Bad spark timing usually creates more noticeable running problems. You may hear pinging under load, feel rough idle, experience hard starting, notice backfiring, see misfire codes, or get cam and crank correlation codes. Now, before you replace anything, do these checks first. Step 1. Scan the vehicle before clearing any codes. Do not erase the codes first. Write them down or take a photo. If you see P0325, P0327, P0328, P0330, P0332, or P0333, the computer is detecting a knock sensor circuit or signal issue. If you see P0300 to P0308, diagnose misfires first. If you see P0335 or P0340, check the crankshaft or camshaft position sensor circuits. If you see P0016, P0017, P0018, or P0019, check mechanical timing, timing chain stretch, timing belt alignment, cam phasers, or cam/crank correlation. Step 2. Listen to when the noise happens. If the pinging happens mostly during acceleration, climbing hills, towing, or heavy load, the engine may be experiencing real combustion knock. If there is no clear knocking noise but the car feels weak and has knock sensor codes, the knock sensor circuit may be the issue. If the engine rattles on cold startup and also has timing correlation codes, suspect timing chain stretch or cam phaser problems. If the engine knocks loudly at idle and gets louder with RPM, stop driving driving and check for internal engine damage. Step 3. Check the fuel. Make sure you are using the correct octane recommended by the manufacturer. Low octane fuel can cause pinging, especially in turbocharged, high compression, or performance engines. If the problem started after filling up at a different fuel station, bad fuel or wrong octane should be considered. Step 4. Check engine temperature. An overheating engine is more likely to knock or ping. Check coolant level, radiator fans, thermostat operation, coolant leaks, and temperature readings. Step 5. Inspect the ignition system. Check the spark plugs for worn electrodes, white blistered tips, oil fouling, carbon buildup, or incorrect gap. A bad spark plug can cause misfires, rough idle, poor acceleration, and knocking-like symptoms. Also check ignition coils, coil boots, plug wires if your vehicle uses them, and coil connectors. Step 6. Check for air and fuel mixture problems. A lean mixture can cause spark knock. Look for vacuum leaks, intake leaks, a dirty mass airflow sensor, a weak fuel pump, a clogged fuel filter, dirty injectors, or exhaust leaks near oxygen sensors. Step 7. Inspect the knock sensor wiring. Look for broken wires, melted insulation, loose connectors, corrosion, oil contamination, or water intrusion. On some vehicles, the knock sensor sits under the intake manifold, where heat and moisture can damage the harness. If the wiring is damaged, replacing the sensor alone may not fix the code. Step 8. Check mechanical timing if symptoms point that way. If the engine has hard starting, rough idle, poor power, timing correlation codes, or rattling on startup, inspect the timing chain, timing belt, tensioner, guides, and cam phasers. A stretched chain or jumped belt can make the engine run badly and may cause serious damage if ignored. How to fix a bad knock sensor. If diagnosis points to the knock sensor, start with the wiring and connector first. Make sure the connector is tight, clean, and not damaged. Check the harness for broken wires, heat damage, corrosion, or oil contamination. If the wiring is good and the code points directly to the sensor, replace the knock sensor with a quality part. Cheap sensors can sometimes cause repeat codes or poor signal readings. On some vehicles, the knock sensor is easy to access on the side of the engine block. On others, it may be under the intake manifold, which means more labor is involved. I have a video link below on how to replace the sensor. When installing the new sensor, make sure it is mounted correctly and tightened to the proper torque. A knock sensor that is too loose or over-tightened may not read vibrations properly. After replacing it, clear the codes and test drive the vehicle, then rescan to make sure the code does not return. How to fix bad spark timing. Fixing bad spark timing depends on the cause. If you have an older vehicle with a distributor, ignition timing may need to be checked with a timing light and adjusted to factory specifications. But if you have a modern vehicle, the computer controls spark timing, so you need to find out why the computer is commanding the wrong timing or why the engine timing is no longer correct. If the problem is caused by bad spark plugs or ignition coils, replace the faulty parts and clear the misfire code. I will link a video below on how to replace the spark plug and ignition coil. If the problem is caused by a crankshaft position sensor or camshaft position sensor, diagnose the sensor, wiring, and connector before replacing parts. If you have cam/crank correlation codes like P0016, P0017, P0018, or P0019, inspect the timing chain, timing belt, tensioner, guides, cam phasers, and oil condition. Some variable valve timing systems depend on clean oil and correct oil pressure. Dirty oil, low oil level, clogged VVT solenoids, or faulty cam phasers can create timing problems that feel like ignition issues. If the engine pings only under load, check fuel octane, overheating, carbon buildup, lean fuel mixture, and EGR operation if your vehicle uses an EGR system. If the timing belt was recently replaced and the engine now runs rough, lacks power, or backfires, the belt may be off by one or more teeth. If the timing chain is stretched or the timing belt has jumped, do not keep driving the vehicle. The repair may involve replacing the timing chain or belt, tensioner, guides, and related components before more damage happens. If this video helped, please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your vehicle model and the codes you found. And if you are still dealing with hard starting, misfires, poor acceleration, or cam cam/crank timing codes like P0335, P0340, P0016, or P0017. Watch my next video on bad camshaft sensor versus bad crankshaft sensor symptoms to help you figure out which sensor may be causing the problem before replacing parts.